Is Subsu's B131 the perfect Bluetooth headphone? Stick around, let's find out. So let's start with the build. Now, this headphone reminds me a lot of the Sony's WH-1000 series. Overpriced trash. Excuse me. The difference here is that this is not overpriced trash because it's significantly more affordable than that headphone. But definitely it's pretty much the same exact build, which is a good thing. I mean, you know, these come in at 9.7 ounces or 285 grams. They're light, but they don't feel cheap. In other words, they're nimble, compact, and highly portable. So you can just fold these up, throw them in a bag. Very, very good for portability on the go, to the pool, to the beach, wherever. You know, just driving around, walking around. You're not gonna look like an idiot, so you won't get punched in the face. That's always a plus. So they also rotate, you know, not 360 degrees, but enough to get a good fit on your head. The headband adjustments are numbered. Subsu puts their logo on each of the cups. One's a text logo, the others are just their regular logo. The padding here is really good, although I will warn you, this type of protein leather, faux leather padding reminds me a lot of the MDR 7506 from Sony, which cracks and peels over time. Now, I'm not 100% certain that's going to happen here, but it might. You know, Subsu also engraves their logo on the top of the headband. You can kind of tell. It's not like cracking, but you can kind of see that it probably will crack at some point, so definitely keep that in mind. One thing I do really appreciate here is the RNL indicator. So on each of the ear cups inside in big block letters. Now most companies put these, you know, not somewhere good and they're usually really tiny, and so you're wasting a lot of time trying to figure out which side is which. Here you just take a quick glance and you're listening to music, bam. So very good. Let's get right into comfort while we're at it. So the padding, like I said, it's really soft and supple. Feels really good. Top of the headband feels good. Sides feel good. It clamps rather snugly, but it doesn't feel like a vice grip like with the HD600s. Definitely above average comfort here. You can wear these for extended periods without an issue. I will say though, when you're at the gym, when you're laying down doing bench press or kneeling, or you know, doing sit-ups or crunches or whatever, they do kind of tend to slide a bit, which I'm not really a huge fan of, because I'm on the hunt for Bluetooth headphones that don't do that, and these kind of don't fit the bill. But you know, not everyone will have an issue with this. Maybe, possibly, I don't know, but I definitely did. So another thing to keep in mind as well. Let's get right into the control scheme. So controls are really, really good here. One thing I really like, just reach back and you know exactly where all the buttons are. They're very intuitive, they're very responsive, they feel pretty good to click. So on the left hand side you've got your power button, the mic on and off button, as well as a 3.5mm jack, so you can use these wired if you want. And on the right side you've got your ANC button, which cycles between ANC on, ANC off, and transparency mode. Now transparency mode, if I'm using a Bluetooth headset, I'm probably not going to use that, but your mileage may vary. Below that you've got the volume buttons, which are immediately recognizable. Like, you don't even have to look, which I really appreciate here. Like, I just reach back there and I know exactly where they are, and they feel really good to adjust. Lastly, you've got your USB Type-C jack on the bottom, so for charging. All in all, control scheme layout is superb. So let's get into battery life, charge time, and range. Now, I was really pretty disappointed with the battery life here. I got exactly 1 week of use before needing to recharge, and I didn't, you know, I used them a lot, but I used them in short bursts. So maybe an hour here, 30 minutes there, 45 here, and I don't know, I was pretty disappointed that I had to charge them again so soon. Now, I've used Bluetooth headphones in the past that have lasted forever on a charge, so that was fairly disappointing. The advertised playtime here is 80 hours, and it's not even close, so definitely something that they can I don't know, fix in the future. I feel like that's a little bit deceptive. Leave your comments down below if you've had any experience with this sort of thing. I will say charge time is pretty good, and mostly matches what they say, so around 2 hours for a full charge. No issues there. Range is also really good. So they advertised 32 feet, but I was getting 53 to 55 in my parking lot outside my apartment. So you're not gonna have an issue with these in the gym if you set your phone down, go get a drink of water, go to the bathroom or whatever. You'll be perfectly fine. Now, let's talk about what you've all been waiting for, the sound. And unfortunately, well, let's get into the bass. So unfortunately, the bass is much too boosted in the mid-bass frequencies, which is pretty common among manufacturers. I'm not sure why they keep doing this. It's kind of irritating me, but nevertheless, too bloated in the mid-bass, too bumpy, too bump happy, whatever you want to call it. It's also a little bit hazy, a little bit fuzzy. There's a layer of hum that also draws unnecessary attention into places that should be left alone. So overall, it kind of just booms too much. So like when you're listening to a song like Lonnie's Lament from John Coltrane, it's just much too forward and much too boosted. Now jazz bass is typically lighter. It has some thump, but you can just immediately tell that it's just not ideal. I'll also say that these are definitely not balanced because of the bass, but also vocals tend to be pushed back and underneath the low end. So in a song like Common's Invocation, you can kind of tell he kind of sounds like he's singing up underneath the bass line, which is definitely not good. It's not terrible. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is just unlistenable, but it's definitely noticeable and something that I can't get on board with personally. I'll also say that the overall sound has this kind of tinny, metallic, slightly artificial character that I just couldn't shake over many hours of listening. I'll leave my playlist down below. It didn't take that long for me to just determine this, but I wanted to listen to as much music as possible before coming to this conclusion, and it's just something that you're gonna notice eventually, even if it's a little bit subtle. To me it was definitely a bit problematic. So overall, I would say these come in at $229, but I would probably price them around $100 to $150. They're definitely priced better than the Sony, the WH-1000 series, but they still need to come down to around $100 because before I'd make a recommendation, because they're just not, I would never pay $230 for these. Although I will say that they do have a lot of good qualities. Now before we get off track, let's just finish the sound section. So another example would be UGK's International Players Anthem. There's just a little bit too much bass bleed over the vocal samples and lyrics, as well as the really amazing hi-hat section kind of gets ruined because in addition to the bass and mid-range issue, there's also the issue of the treble sometimes kind of sounds flat, a little bit dull, lacking sparkle, which depending on who you ask, this may not be like a deal breaker or anything like that. It does kind of mimic the Harman response in some ways, but it's definitely not tuned nearly as well as an AKG, for instance, 371. But the biggest issue definitely by far is the bass and the overall metallic kind of sound that it gives off. So yeah, to round this out, what I liked about these, definitely comfort is phenomenal. The build is really good, although when I was taking pictures of these, I noticed that, I don't know if it's the paint that chipped a little bit, but I'll flash a picture on screen. The only reason I noticed it is because I was taking super up close shots. The craftsmanship, while it's mostly very, very good, it definitely still can be improved a little bit more. I noticed that one side was a little bit rough, and you'll see it in the picture. So yeah, portability is also really good, and the button layout as well. I really appreciated that. Super intuitive and easy to use. Now, where I feel they can improve, definitely the price and sound. So this is my plea to every manufacturer who happens to watch this. Please stop overemphasizing the mid-bass, because it kind of tends to ruin everything. So price to performance ratio as far as sound is not very good. It could definitely be improved. Like I said before, these are not $230 headphones in my mind. Another issue is the slide problem in the gym, so that can be improved. Battery life can also be improved tremendously. Aside from the sound, this was definitely a big disappointment for me. And lastly, this is kind of a nitpick, but the instruction booklet is like a cheap paper fold out, and it kind of feels like you're opening a roadmap. So for the price, something along the lines of the Davis, the HiFiMan and Davis instruction booklet would be great, since these are pushing $250. I think a paper fold out is not acceptable. One other thing I liked also was the hard shell carrying case. I did appreciate that as well. So do I recommend these? I would have to say no, unfortunately. I really went into this wanting to, because they're built really well, they're very comfortable, they've got a lot of things going for them. I think Subsu is definitely a company to keep an eye on. These are surprisingly good in many ways, but the sound for me is just not up to par. Maybe if I was just starting out reviewing and I hadn't listened to many headphones, I might give these a recommendation, but since I've heard over 115 at this point, and I just can't in good conscience tell people to buy these when there are many problems with the sound. They should theoretically pass the test, but because they're not tuned all that well, you can kind of tell that it's a consumer product rather than something that, I hate to say this, that an audiophile would approve of. And I don't consider myself an audiophile, but I definitely wouldn't feel great telling somebody to buy these based on sound. And I'll just leave it at that. So don't forget to ask me about my grandchildren, and don't ever give up.